Okay, so this one's a little bit data geeky, data nerdy. I really went down the rabbit hole on this one. So the thing is, everybody seems to be arguing whether AI is going to create infinite jobs or destroy them all. It seems that the data is like telling a slightly different story, kind of a weirder one. And I want to show you what's actually happening on the job market right now. First, there's kind of the data doom. So if I go to, this is Bureau of Labor Statistics, they just reported that job openings in tech fell 30% year over year. The interesting part, of course, is that it's not uniform. There was this MIT piece that essentially tracked 5,000 customer service reps using AI, and they saw that productivity increased by 14%, which is significant. And what's interesting is that the bottom third of workers improved by 35%, while the top performers, they barely changed. So the idea is that AI isn't replacing workers, it's compressing skill differences. Now, the National Bureau of, I can't remember what it's called, the NBER of Economic Research found that ChatGPT reduces inequality between workers by 14% in just months, which sounds good, right? Except wages for the skilled workers actually started falling. When everyone can perform it 80%, why would you pay for 95%? So then there was this study at MIT, if I can just bring it up here. These MIT economists, they predict that this could eliminate 50% of current jobs. Not tasks, jobs within 10 years. Sorry, not jobs, but tasks within 10 years. But the thing is, tasks are jobs when you're starting out. So when you think of entry level, a task is actually, a series of tasks is actually a job. Junior developers already can't find work or are having more trouble finding work. Law firms, they stopped hiring like first years. Goldman Sachs, they replaced 30% of their analysts with AI systems recently. And so the pattern is pretty clear, right? That's the doom scenario. AI doesn't fire you. It just makes sure you're never hired. There's no new entry-level jobs. So then you've got kind of the boom data. I would say you start off with like McKinsey. So McKinsey's latest research, it's from like a year and a half ago, but still pretty recent. It shows that AI could add, I think it was like 4 trillion to global GDP annually. So just consider that that's bigger than the entire UK economy. The thing that we expected less, and this was from this piece over here. So he's the guy who predicted automation's impact perfectly, and he just reversed his position. So his paper shows AI creating entirely new job categories that we can't even name yet, which is how these technological transitions very often go. The AEA, the American Economic Association, they tracked every major technology disruption since 1900. And it seems that employment always increased afterward, after a new technological revolution. The telephone created 200 new job types, for example. The internet created 500. So this might keep growing in an almost exponential manner. So that NBER study, it's pretty wild. I'm just going to pop it back up. Let me I have my list of links over here. So for every job automation destroyed between 1980 and 2020, it created 2.6 new ones. Now, the only thing is they weren't in the same place or for the same people. And that's where it gets interesting. Amazon, for example, they employ 1.5 million people. That's more than the entire US steel industry at its peak. And Microsoft has 220,000 employees, and less than half are actually engineers today. So this is where it gets really interesting. It shows something crucial. Technological unemployment is always temporary, but it's the transition that hurts. So that's kind of the conclusion there. The 15, 20-year transition can hurt a lot. You've got this one, it's JSTOR. So the Quarterly Journal of Economics, they documented the Industrial Revolution. So like in 1811, the Luddites, they were smashing machines because unemployment hit 15%. And by 1840, employment was higher than ever. But here's what isn't in the piece, is that an entire generation basically, well, it's what it's suggesting, got crushed, essentially. And that's what's kind of scary. And then if you go to the American Economic Review, they tracked what happened to those displaced workers, and 40% never recovered their previous income. Their children, however, earned 150% more than their parents would have without the disruption. So are we sacrificing a generation here? for the generation after to do a lot better from an economic point of view. The economy always seems to recover, but individual people often don't during the transition period. Now, AI might actually be different. So I go back to that National Bureau of Economic Research piece. So it might actually be different. The Brookings Institution economists, actually, I'm going to bring up the Brookings one. So what the Brookings Institution is pointing out is that the key difference is every previous automation replaced muscle, whereas AI replaces thought, right? And so Stanford economists, they modeled this. Let me see where I have that one. So the Stanford economists, they model it. And the idea is when machines replaced farming, I can't find it here, it's somewhere. But the idea was that when machines replaced farming, people moved to factories. And when machines replaced factories, people moved to offices. Now, when machines replaced thinking, where do people actually go? There was a piece from the IMF, not so recent, but still relevant. They released this number that AI will affect 60% of jobs in advanced economies. Not replace, affect. But it's the higher skilled jobs that face more disruption, not less. And the Harvard Business Review article that we looked at before, they tested consultants using GPT-4 and their performance improved 40% on average. But for the top performers, they got worse. They trusted AI too much and stopped thinking. So that's where it's pretty interesting. Now, where I think we miss both sides is something that was highlighted by, let me see where it is. Just got to go down my list. Yeah, something highlighted by Gabriel Zuckman, Cezanne, Piketty. So this Journal of Economics paper, it shows the real trend. So labor share of income has fallen from 64% to 58% since 2000, whereas capital share keeps growing. When OpenAI needed computing power, NVIDIA, they added 2 trillion in market cap. When companies need less junior devs, those junior devs, they don't get 2 trillion. They get nothing, right? So that's kind of the arbitrage. And when we go back to the NBER, they tracked all of those technological revolutions. We see the same pattern. Capital captures most gains initially. Labor catches up like 20, 30 years later. That's basically the conclusion. So the question isn't whether jobs will exist, it's whether we can survive the transition. Now, plot twist, the conference board, they reported 8.1 million unfilled jobs in the US at the moment, like right now, during the AI revolution. So like what's happening, right? And there were some numbers also I found from Manpower. So Manpower, they surveyed 40,000 employers and 77% can't find the talent they need. So there's kind of this discrepancy. It's the highest level in 17 years. And then the World Economic Forum, one of their latest reports predicted 69 million new jobs by 2027. This is the 2022 piece, but there's also the Future of Jobs report 2024, kind of similar numbers. So they're saying that there's going to be 69 new million jobs, but also 83 million jobs eliminated. So the net loss is like 14 million, except they predicted the same thing in 2020 and they were off by 40%, I think it is. So nobody actually knows. Now, here's what the data actually tells us. And the conclusion is kind of like the builder's advantage. So this Kauffman Foundation, what they're telling us is they show that startup formation is at its highest level ever. So there were 5.4 million new businesses in 2023. Venture capital deployed 170 billion bucks in I think it was 2023 or 2024, something like that, 170 billion. Not into public companies, into like 15,000, 20,000 startups. So the pattern is pretty clear. If you can build, and this is a belief, it's kind of my conclusion, if you can build, you kind of win. If you wait for employment, I don't know, I'm not sure. And there was also something that was shared by MIT Sloan. This research here, it shows something crucial, that places with more robots have more total jobs. That's pretty interesting, but different ones. So the transition is brutal, but the end state seems to be better. which is the conclusion that I've already sort of repeated 3 times. So that's pretty interesting, right? Places with more robots end up having more total jobs. So which one's right? I'm not sure. I think both sides is very often, it's a gray area, are right. AI is going to destroy millions of jobs. AI will create millions more, but they don't, and they won't be the same jobs in the same places for the same people. So the economists, they can debate forever. The data shows one thing clearly, and something I believe is that the future belongs to builders, really belongs to builders. We're going to have a much more scattered economy with a lot more smaller organizations, smaller size, but sort of a long curve of many, many more builders building more organizations who will also hire. They'll hire less, but there'll be more of them. And yeah, again, I do think the future belongs to builders. We're in the era of the builder. It's also why we started a venture studio called humanoids.ai, and we started a whole sort of series of tools to start helping people with building. So we've got this one tool that's called Don't Build This that allows you to refine your ideas based on internal, external, synthetic, and real data. We're at about 100,000 ideas roasted so far. And we have another one which is called If You Can't Find Great Ideas. We've got the Nugget Finder that uses publicly available but also private signals to come up with absolute nuggets for you. And we can also adapt nuggets to your specific skills. So like, I want to build a B to C app. I'm not sure what, but for really big pain that people will pay for right now. And then based off of that, you can also refine it. So you can personalize the idea based on your skills, based on what you actually want to build, categories that interest you the most, your revenue goal, and so on and so forth. So you can play around with that. And we also built an actual tool that helps you build past the lovable or past the vibe coding phase. Steady infrastructure and steady scaffolding for your vibe coding projects so that you don't need to fix everything and retrofit 2-3 weeks in. That's kind of why I went all in on this venture building and on this business building, because again, I really, really think that the future belongs to the builders, and we're in the builder era. I think that new game probably started 2 years ago in November 2020. 2022, with the release of ChatGPT and the Cambrian explosion of this sort of Gen AI wave. And yeah, I do think that people winning will be shipping products. Both can win, but the transition period is going to be sort of messy and kind of maybe slightly longer than we think. So it's kind of your choice. Wait for the economists to figure it out, start building, or keep learning and keep growing to nail that sort of transition period. That's it. Those were just some thoughts. Ooh, this one was a bit long. Thanks.